And as a quick small introduction, this is another Creative Zone webinar. This is under the umbrella of She Leads. That is an initiative that we have put together with the Dubai Businesswomen Council and Creative Zone. We have partnered and we came up with this beautiful initiative of empowering and accelerating 100 women-led startups and entrepreneurs in the UAE. And we have eventually opened this up to other members of Creative Zone and other members of the Dubai Businesswomen Council. I can see Nadine Halabi connected, so that she's the business development manager of the Dubai Businesswomen Council. Nadine, welcome. It's nice to see you there. And Nadine actually is the one that brought Brian in. Brian, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Brian is a seasoned entrepreneur in the healthcare industry. He's the CEO of Vertu, a digital health platform. And he's a Johns Hopkins educated expert in the use of digitalization and connectivity to improve in the healthcare industry. Maybe, Brian, give us one introduction about your experience, who you are for our attendees.
Certainly. First of all, Lorenzo, thank you for having me here. And Nadine, thank you for introducing me to this program. It's really is an honor and a privilege. My background, most of my professional career has been as a hospital administrator. So I spent most of the time building hospitals, running hospitals, managing groups of doctors and non-clinical staff. All during that time, I used connectivity and digitalization as a tool within my hospital and healthcare networks to improve care. And over the years, I realized that I was more passionate about the use of connectivity to improve care than I was in the actual management of the hospitals. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I decided to make the leap and walk out of a very comfortable and safe job, working for Johns Hopkins, running a bunch of hospitals, to starting Vertu, which is a platform that connects organizations for both medical services as well as educational services.
Excellent. So today's webinar is titled Startup Innovation 2.0, the art and science of surviving and growing a business. So let's get started. We have with us a lot of startups, entrepreneurs, people that recently started their business, and a lot of them are in the middle of starting their business. How can we get started with this webinar? What are the main points that you would like to bring across, Brian?
Vertu is my second startup, and I, over my professional career, have engaged with a lot of friends, a lot of business associates who have started, grown businesses. I've been involved with different venture capital funds that have funded businesses, and over time, just by surviving, just by being in business, you learn a lot. And one of the main things that I've learned, and the main theme of what I will discuss today, is the importance of shifting our focus. That we tend to focus so much on winning, so much on being successful, that many times, while we're so focused on winning and being successful, we trip over our own feet and fall on our face because we have not anticipated failure. We have not anticipated the many different ways that we can fail. And that is the central theme of, not at all for this to be a negative discussion, but the very positive importance of identifying the ways that a business can fail so that you can avoid that. And I'll explain that much more over the next 40 minutes.
Excellent. So I understand you have a few slides to share with us. I will encourage everybody to put your questions on the Q&A box, on the Q&A section. Start sharing your questions. What would you like us to address during this session? What questions do you have? We will put them through to Brian, and I'll be happy to give my point of view on some of them as well. Brian?
Okay. Well, again, hello, Lorenzo. Thank you. Nadine, thank you. All the attendees, thanks for giving your time and sharing your time with me and with us. I certainly hope there's some things that are of value to you. What I'd like to do really is just share with you my experiences and some things, a few things, not many, but the things that I have found to be the most important over my career as an entrepreneur, as starting a company, growing a company, and have some kind of a dialogue. After this presentation, there's some additional information that I'll be sending to you all, a few pieces of information that references that I think will be helpful to you. So I'd like to just jump right into it now and start with a story. And the story is about my daughter Bianca. She was playing football. She played on the Ascot United football team in the UK. And on one rainy Saturday, their team won. And so I walked over to the coach of the team to congratulate the coach on their win. So I said, congratulations, coach, great game. And the coach's response shocked me. It just caught me completely off guard, because I said, congratulations on the win. And the coach responded to me by saying, we didn't win, they lost. And I stood there feeling really stupid for a second. And then I asked him, I said, well, what do you mean? He said, statistically speaking, this was one of our worst performances. We made more errors than we've ever made. We've missed more goals. It was one of our worst games. The only difference was the other team made even more mistakes. So it wasn't that my daughter's team played such an exemplary game. It was that the other team, they sabotaged themselves. The other team, normally, statistically speaking, was a better team. But in this case, they just made more mistakes and it cost them the win. And this, even though it may seem like a semantic nuance or whatever, hopefully by the end of our talk today, you'll see the importance of understanding the difference between winning and not losing. Because many times our businesses fail, not because we don't win, but because we lost. I'll give you another example, a personal example. Several years ago, I participated in an ultra marathon, a foot race in the Sahara Desert. I came in the top 22% of that race. And the important thing was not that I came in the top 22%, but that of the people that I beat, of the people that I came in front of, many of them, almost the majority of them, were younger than me, but also they were much more fit than I was. They were much better runners. There are people that I had run marathon with in London, in Berlin, and other places. These people were fitter and faster than me, yet in this race, I came in ahead of them, not because I was more fit, not because of my age, but simply because I made less mistakes than they did. Most of the people that came behind me were behind me because they had many blisters on their feet, blisters on their back. They got sick in their stomachs. They were dehydrated. They got lost. They didn't follow the rules. So it wasn't as much that I won, but it was that, again, they failed because everything that they did wrong was preventable. Everything. They could have prevented it. They didn't get struck by lightning. They didn't get eaten by some desert monster. They all made preventable errors that cost them the position in the race. So that's going to be a key thing, that I'll mention in various shapes as we progress through this, because it affects everything from the management of your business, your staffing, and even your definition of innovation, where this may help you actually refine your innovation definition some. So yes, we want to succeed, but we want to avoid losing, because we want to avoid losing by learning the causes of failure. Most of us spend so much time watching YouTube videos, reading books about how to succeed, how to win, how to be creative, how to be awesome, and we really invest little or no time in understanding why businesses fail. But where do we learn these things? Where do we learn about how to run a business as entrepreneurs, as individuals starting, or maybe you're in the middle of the growth of your company? You need to learn from someone. None of us were born genetically with this great book of wisdom of everything you need to know about marketing and finance and product development. So historically, the majority of us have gone to business books, right? Globally, each year, there are over 1 million new business book publications, which, that's shocking unto itself, that you would think that by now we would actually figured out how to run businesses. But each year, there are 1 million new titles that are published. And this is just books, and then there's all the YouTube videos and the podcasts and all the different areas. But what I believe is, and I believe this I believe it based on a lot of experience, I believe that the majority of these books are of little value, practical value to us, and in fact are misleading us in many ways. And I want to explain why, because I know that most of you, myself included, we spend a lot of time buying these business books and reading them and nodding our heads because it all makes so much sense. But then when we try to put these business book ideas into practice, for some reason it doesn't work. So I have a slide here that'll tell the story of why it doesn't work. This is the universe of startups. So if we look at your companies, my company, all the startups that are created in any one year, all around the world. So this is all of the startups that are out there. Sadly, most startups will fail. Within the first couple of years, 90 to 95% of startups will fail. That's a sad statistic, but it is reality. And it does help going into a startup knowing that reality, that, from day one, the cards are stacked against you. So you need to really be committed and be on point. But of the companies that survive, of the companies that don't fail, only a small percentage of those actually go public, right? Listing their company on the stock exchange. But of those companies that have survived and that go public, only a very small percentage of those companies stay alive for many years after they go public. So you have this large universe of startups that quickly dwindles down to some that have survived, and even a smaller percentage that go public, and even a smaller percentage that are alive 15 years later. Now, the problem is it's these companies that most of the business books like these are based upon. If you look at the majority of business books right in the very beginning, it'll say, this wonderful business book is based on the analysis of 1,000 publicly traded companies and blah, 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 800 publicly traded companies, 50,000 publicly traded companies, whatever it is. But almost every business book, definitely, these are two of the highest selling business books in history. Right? I've read them, and when I first read them, I nodded my head and I thought, wow, these are great, right? Because I didn't put my statistics hat on, right? I didn't really give thought to the fact that basing everything in these business books on this sample size makes a problem that you cannot infer from a small sample size like that any meaningful information that will apply to a large universe like startups. That's called selection bias. It simply does not work. Basing all of your research on such a minuscule little population basically gives you meaningless outcome relative to startups. So even though these books have sold millions and millions of copies, I argue, and I believe, statistically speaking, they're of very, very little value to you when they're talking about succeeding. And it was actually proven in a book by Nicholas Taleb called The Black Swan, where he actually looked into these companies that failed, right? He did research focusing on companies that started and failed. And what he found was that many of these companies did the same exact things that were in the business books. They did the same things that the survivors did, and they still failed, which is evidence that just doing the things that are in these, these business books may not be the only answer. So when you're looking at, where am I going to get my guidance from? How am I going to figure out how to be an entrepreneur? How am I going to know what to do and what not to do? Just blindly going into the bookstore, into Borders or Amazon and buying a bunch of, well-selling business books, you need to do more. I believe that you need to learn why failures failed. That you need to be a student of failure. This does not mean being a negative person. This does not mean walking around saying, oh, woe is me, the whole world fails and it falls apart. It means seeing reality. Jack Welch, one of the most successful executives of all time, he would always stress the importance of seeing reality. Not seeing what you wanted to see in your head, not making pretend everything is beautiful and wonderful, but seeing the reality of not just your business, but seeing the reality of all businesses, seeing the reality of all startups, that how so many of them fail. Well, if so many of them are failing, why are they failing? Because that's where the magic is. Understanding, why did those people not beat me in that race in the desert? Why did they have blisters all over their feet? Why did that team not beat my daughter's team when they were all better football players? Because when you understand the causes of failure, then and only then can you start mitigating them to make sure that they don't happen. But not all failure is bad. Okay, I know, I've been talking just now about, failure being the cause, the causes of businesses collapse. And in many, many instances, that's what's happening. It's not that you didn't win, but you failed. But there are also instances when failure can be good. In 2001, a friend of mine, Michael Strege from MIT, he did a very interesting project. At first, I didn't think it was interesting until I heard the outcome. He had some of the research students, research assistants from MIT conduct exit interviews of guests that were leaving a very well-known hotel. And they were interviewing the people that were leaving, asking them about their experience, asking them if they had any problems, asking them if they would return to the hotel, asking them if they would recommend this hotel to other people. Now, intuitively, you would just kind of think that if a guest came out after a nice weekend at a hotel and everything was perfect at the hotel, that they would be the most satisfied. They would be the ones that would be most likely to recommend this hotel to other people. That's not what they found. And this is the part that I found it to be amazing. And I found it to be so important for my businesses, for your business. that what they found, and I'm going to read this directly from their report, which I'm going to share with you after today. Guests who had experienced a problem, so guests who had experienced a problem that was quickly and politely resolved, rated the hotel service higher than guests who had had no problems at all. This is not trivial. For me, this is one of the maybe single most important business lessons I ever learned. We spend so much time trying to be perfect. We spend so much time trying to provide a perfect product, a perfect service, right? To be innovative, so we're always on the bleeding edge. But how much time do we invest in having some type of industrialized process for dealing with when we screw up? Because we will. The more customers you have, the more times you will fail. And many, many businesses, and all of you attending, you know this, many businesses, when they screw up, they run away, they hide. They deny anything was wrong. They try to blame it on something else, instead of handling it in a polite, effective manner. What was more important, in this same study, more guests with happy resolution of their hassle said they were more likely to recommend a hotel than did their trouble-free guests. Think of how counterintuitive that is. Lorenzo, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Actually, I relate to this topic, and I just wanted to mention, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's those moments where our own clients or our customers give us some feedback and really are outspoken about the experience that they had with us. It's a true blessing of being able to learn, to adapt, and to understand how to fix things and how to mold our business and our offer more precisely to what the market needs. And I see that this is a big mistake that a lot of startups do. A lot of the startups and entrepreneurs have their own ways, their own ideas, but they're not listening enough of what's happening out there and what is it that truly the customers need. And Brian, we're starting to have a few good questions that are coming out, and you were addressing the issue of failure. Maybe you're going to continue through the slides on this, and let me know if you are. I'm happy to continue with that. But the question says, what is the most common cause of failure behind startups? You were talking about how many of them have done exactly the same thing as the ones that become successful. What are the main things that you have seen are the main causes of failure for startups?
Yeah, I think the single most common cause is you simply run out of money. I mean that's definitely in the top three causes where most of the time when entrepreneurs are trying to raise money. And this was taught to me years and years ago. I was looking to fund a company, and I was looking for a certain amount of money, and someone older and much more experienced than me said, get twice as much money. And I said, we don't need twice as much money. And he said, you will need twice as much money. You may not know it yet, but you will need. And the thing is, he was right. And then over the years, the decades or whatever, I've seen it in my own experience, and I've seen it in the experience of others where it's not that they don't have a good product. It's not that there's not a market, but they simply burn through all their money and they can't sustain. So that's definitely one of the leading causes. But related to that, and this is something that I'm going to touch on the next slide. Related to that is, even if you have money, money can be a problem. Money can be a problem when you're spending all of your time in the office, sitting with your co-founders, strategizing, planning, designing the web page, making the business cards fancy, doing all those things that we do, instead of going out in the market, sitting in front of customers. Because many entrepreneurs, as weird as this sounds, are afraid to sit in front of customers. right? They want to start their business. They want to be the CEO. They want to, be the entrepreneur and all that stuff, but they do not want to be the salesman, right? They see a distinction between being the salesperson and being an entrepreneur. And that is a deadly mistake. Because, as the founder, as the entrepreneur, as the CEO, you are the super salesman or saleswoman or salesperson or whatever. So running out of money or getting lazy because of money, and then tied directly to that, not continually pivoting and tweaking your product or service to be what the market really wants to buy. Right? That you come up with a certain, an idea, and you're in love with the idea, you're in love with the service, you're in love with the product or whatever, except no one's buying it. But you keep staying with it, and no one's buying it. And at some point, sitting down and saying, maybe no one's buying it because no one wants it, right? That maybe I need to change it. So running out of money, getting lazy because of money, and not continually pivoting and tweaking your product until it clicks, because many companies, they don't go from 0 to 100 in the first year. It may take 5, 6, 7 years before the company starts getting traction and taking off. So they would be kind of my three main areas: the money issues, and then not continually playing with your offering until it clicks.
Completely agree. I'll let you carry on. Maybe you have other topics to raise in your presentation.
Certainly. I want to just on the topic of service failure recovery, I just want to quickly mention two other examples, because they're both good examples and they're both personal to me. My friend Peter was a hospital CEO in Thailand of one of the big private hospitals there. And anytime there was a patient complaint or a patient family member complaint, he would get in his car, and he would normally find out after the patient was discharged, right? So they would be home, and then he would find out that there was some complaint. He would make an appointment with the family, and he would drive to their home, meet with the family, and find out what went wrong, get their feedback on it, so that he could make improvements in the hospital. And to many of our other peers, other hospital executives, they always felt that was kind of excessive, right? They felt it was kind of excessive to have the big important hospital CEO taking his time to go out to meet with one patient. Right? They always, because we would have lunches and dinners, and people would say, can't you get one of your marketing people to do that, or one of your junior people to do that? To most of them, he never really talked much about it, because for Peter, this was his secret weapon. Right? He never told them what happened. He's a friend of mine, so he told me his strategy behind doing this, because in his experience, every time he went out to a dissatisfied patient or their family home and engaged with them, they became ambassadors for the hospital. They fell in love with the hospital, and then they would run around Bangkok and run around Thailand talking about how great Samiti Bay Hospital was, and they would get him more patients than putting up a $200,000 billboard on the main highway. So this way of recovering from a service failure was a great marketing tool for him, and I've used that myself. And it does work, because when new patients would come into my hospital, I always have a mechanism for finding out, where did you come from? How did you find out about my hospital? And I'm so happy when I find out that, they say, I was recommended, by Lorenzo, right? And I happen to know that 2 years ago, Lorenzo was an unhappy patient, and I visited Lorenzo's house, and now Lorenzo is referring patients to me, right? So this is another example of of using a service failure to switch it around and turn it into a great opportunity. And I can't stress the importance enough about that. One other example I'll quickly mention, years ago, I bought a computer from Dell. I bought a Dell laptop online, had the computer for about 2 years, and then I had a problem with it. I sent it to Dell in Singapore for them to fix the problem. I waited a week, I waited 2 weeks, it didn't come back. I contacted them and they said, we lost your computer. I said, you lost my, they said, yeah, it's probably here in the warehouse somewhere. It was delivered to the warehouse. We just can't find it. And we wanted to be honest with you and let you know that. They said, well, we hope you had backed up all your data. And like a very good, responsible technical person, I never backed up any of my data. So everything I had was in that computer. And then while I was on the call with them, they said, we know that we can't make up for the missing data, but we want to try to do our best. Please go onto the Dell website and buy anything you want. Spec out any laptop that you want, and we'll have it delivered to you within 48 hours. I said, any budget? They said, no. To go in there, and so I did, right? And I got this tremendous laptop computer, and 48 hours later, it showed up at my office, and I was using it. And then about 2 days after that, I got a call from Dell, and they said, we found your computer. I said, wow. And they said, I said, should I send this one back to you? They said, no, keep that one. If you want, you can send it to us. We'll transfer the data from your old computer to the new computer, and you can keep that. Everything they did was above and beyond the call of duty. They could have been like most companies and had me on hold all the time and said that they're looking for it or all those things. But but they didn't make money on me, right? They lost money on me. But what did they get in return? Right now, I'm a walking, talking international advertisement for Dell computers, right? So I cannot stress enough really investing the time in all, and it doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur, it's just you, or if you have 5 people or 50 people, you just can't say, oh, we have a culture of service failure recovery. You need to actually make it into systems and practices so that the frontline person, so they know what are the rules of engagement when a customer is pissed off. And I'll give you one last example from a hotel. The frontline staff at the Ritz-Carlton, right? The frontline staff at the Ritz-Carlton have a discretionary $2,000 US budget that they can do with whatever they want for making customers happy, right? So if they have a customer coming and saying, my shoes were stolen in front of my door, how much were they, sir? $300. There you go, sir, $300. And they do not have to ask their boss for permission. They don't have to say, let me check with my boss if I can do this or not. It is completely at their discretion on how they do that money. And globally, the Ritz-Carlton always has one of the highest levels of customer satisfaction anywhere, because it's part of the industrial processes of the company, and it's part of the culture. And it's something that you as the entrepreneur, you as the executive, you need to build that in intentionally. It won't happen by accident. It won't happen because I hired nice people, right? No, it will happen only if you go on the internet and search service failure recovery and find examples of other companies that have done that. And there's lots of them, and you make it as an integral part of your business. And I promise you, it'll be a great thing.
Brian, I totally agree with this concept that you're bringing. And especially, I think, for the startups, right at the beginning, I think they need to make use of that opportunity of going the extra mile for any new customers that they're handling, because especially at the beginning, you have the muscle to do that, to go the extra mile, because you're not that busy at the beginning maybe. And every customer, any client that you interact with is an opportunity to really showcase how good you could deliver, so that they start recommending you and talking good things about you. Because these people, as you rightly said, they're going to be at a dinner later and they're going to say, well, you know, I met this guy that does this tailor-made caps and stuff, and he came all the way to my place and he delivered them. I remember right after I was finishing my high school, I started working for this tourism company that was doing in Argentina tourism related to very big farms and castles, very traditional castles, you know, gaucho castles from the traditional farms of Argentina. And it was a very unique business. And at the beginning, we didn't have a lot of clients. And I remember the first client that we had, I went all the way to their homes to meet with them, to show them the brochures, to show them that they were going to get involved. And I remember the client asking me, saying, do you do this with everybody? Them acknowledging how difficult it would be to, if you were doing 100 clients a month, how would you be able to cope with this? So that would be the second thing to add to this. Be careful that once you start growing, that you're able to sustain that kind of delivery of service for your pipeline of clients. Those are just my 2 cents that I wanted to bring on that topic. Brian?
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, so just on closing that up, you know, preventing mistakes, preventing service failures, it's important, but how you recover from them is possibly even more important. That you must intentionally create a culture of service failure recovery. Most companies do not do that. And I don't mean most startups, I mean most of the, you know, without naming any names, but companies that we all interact with on a regular basis, that their service is terrible. When they make a mistake, it's our fault. So this is, you know, you have your product or your service, right? That needs to be differentiated by itself, but then also how your organization responds to service failure can be a differentiator, because your competition is probably not. When your competition fails, they probably stick their head in the sand. So it's a way that you can be much more competitive. Money. Most startups are obsessed with getting funded. You know, we have all heard about the elevator pitch and your pitch deck and Shark Tank, and so much focus is on getting the money. And then if you are fortunate enough to get the money, what I have seen and what I've experienced is this. You get the money, the big box of cash, maybe it's an installment, maybe it's lump sum or whatever it is, and then you feel that you've accomplished some goal, right? Like, oh, we've arrived, we've gotten the money, we're funded. So then you spend time with your Gantt charts and your PowerPoints and making the presentations better and refining the product or the service, adding some more lines of code, you know, changing the website, changing it again, doing all of these things. Meanwhile, you're spending all of that money. But you feel that you're doing the right thing because you've got your business plan, but then your sales targets start slipping. The sales deliveries that you told the investors, you know, that on your fancy Excel spreadsheet, that at the end of 6 months, we'd have 22 customers. At the end of 9 months, we'd have 128 customers. And, you know, those things start slipping out, but then you make all kinds of excuses for why they're slipping out. The reason they're slipping out is because you've gotten comfortable. The reason that you've gotten lazy, because you've got all this money sitting in the bank, you're getting your paycheck every month, you have health insurance, you're eating, you have a car to drive, and so now you're just kind of going through the motions. The reason I can say this with such passion and clarity is because I started my company with $3 million US, which is a hell of a lot of money. And I burned through all of that being comfortable, being lazy, doing all the wrong things. But at the time, they seemed like all the right things. That we were developing the next best thing, and we were doing all this innovative stuff, and we were speaking at conferences and writing papers and doing webinars and doing all these things. But the one thing that we weren't doing, we weren't going and sitting in front of customers signing contracts. We were doing everything else. We were like, the analogy of that is like a rocking horse, right? There's lots of motion, but no progress, right? So it wasn't until all that money was gone and we got hungry, really, literally hungry. And then we started selling. And we sold, and we got customers, and then the real money, not the investor money, the revenue money. That's the only money that matters. The revenue money started coming in the door, and that only started happening once we got rid of that crutch of the investment money. So many of us are focused on getting the investment money. But what I would urge you all to do, if you haven't done that yet, slow down, and whenever someone comes to me and they say, hey, Brian, I want to start a business. And I was like, are you crazy? Well, you must be crazy. I don't even ask them anymore. If they say that, they must be crazy. And that's fine. Okay. And then they start talking about the website and the name and all these other things. I'm like, stop, or their pitch deck or this, stop. And then I asked them, how many potential customers have you gone and talked to yet? What? I don't have business cards yet. I can't go talk to them. I don't have a website yet. I can't go talk to them yet. I don't have a fancy office downtown yet. I can't go talk to them yet. That so many new entrepreneurs, startup, they feel that they cannot go talk to potential customers until they have a staff of 15 people in some fancy office with a beautiful business card and a real flash website. And that is dangerous, right? The best thing that you can do for yourself, for your customers, and for your investors, so that you don't just waste all their money, is before you do anything, identify what are your ideal customers, right? Who are you actually, do you know who you're targeting? Can you actually get a database of their names, whether they're organization, like a specific hospital, or individuals like Brian DeFrancesca? And before you do anything, make an appointment, go out and see them without your fancy business cards, without your fancy website, without your fancy overly staffed office, and sit down with Lorenzo or sit down with Brian or whatever and say, hey, Lorenzo, if I make this thing, or if I provide this service, would you buy it? No more, it's not more complicated than that. If I were to make this, would you pay me 300 dirhams for it? And then go to another ideal type customer and ask the same thing. If I was providing this service, a coaching service, a spa service, a restaurant, whatever it is, would you be my customer? Most of the entrepreneurs that I've asked to do that are afraid. They're afraid to do that because they're afraid of what the answer may be. They're afraid that they're going to take their beautiful little baby of an idea out to the mean, ugly market, and they're going to say, hey, Brian, if we make this, will you buy it? And I'll say, no, I think it's stupid. Or you take your service idea to Lorenzo and say, hey, Lorenzo, if I open this restaurant, of this new kind of cuisine, blah, 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 would you be a customer? No, it sounds horrible. So they don't. Before you take all the money, before you hire all the staff and do all of those things, go out and see a lot. And 5 is not a lot. 20, 30, 40 people. You can't see enough people. And say, hey, I'm thinking of starting a gym. I'm thinking of starting a restaurant. I'm thinking of making some kind of thing that makes your hair do crazy things. Would you buy that? And they may say yes or no. Even if they say yes, don't believe them. They may be saying yes just to be nice to you, right? But at least if they all say no, well, that should tell you something. That takes bravery, right? And the majority of what you're going to need to do to stay alive, survive, and thrive is going to require courage and bravery, right? And just constantly getting your face beat in and doing things that you probably would thought you never would do in your life. I don't mean illegal or unethical things. I mean making sacrifices that you wouldn't think possible. And just going out before you've started a business and sitting down with someone and saying, if I made this, would you buy it? And after you've done that with 25 or 50 people, you will know so much. And you don't have to hire McKinsey. You don't have to hire Price Waterhouse. You do it yourself. You're the entrepreneur. Go out there and ask. Ask if it's like me and I'm selling to governments and I'm selling to hospitals, go talk to the CEO of the hospital. Would you buy? I just did this recently. Recently, I was having some issues with some of our services not selling. I got on Zoom calls with some of the executives in some hospitals, and I said, hey, you're not buying my stuff. Why not? What's wrong? Is it, and the thing that was what's wrong, it wasn't what was wrong with my service. What was wrong was how I was communicating about my service. So even once you've started and you have revenue, you still need to go out and ask the questions. You'll learn mountains.
Another thing that I've seen, Brian, that is a bit of a common mistake in the entrepreneurship world is that a lot of the starters are afraid of sharing too much of their initial project and their ideas, with thinking that maybe someone is going to steal their idea. So they're going to steal their product or their service. And like you're saying, this hair product, let's say but that's a very common mistake. And I agree with you. If you don't go out there and share it with the world and talk to people and talk to clients, talk to friends and tell them about it, you will never get to the bottom of how this will become successful.
Yeah, I mean, Lorenzo, what you said is so true. There is this illusionary belief that if I tell people about my great idea, oh my God, they're going to steal it and they're going to make $1 billion out of it. The one thing that I've learned, and seasoned entrepreneurs and investors they'll definitely agree with it. There is no shortage of great ideas. There's an ocean of great ideas. There's so many great ideas. And there's no shortage of money. There's a lot of money out there as well. What there is a shortage of people that are able to convert those ideas into profit, right? Because it's not as simple as just, oh, I'll make this controller and put it up on Dubizzle and people will buy it. Because any of you that have started a business and are growing a business, you'll find that out. That you can go give the secret sauce away. You can tell people, I'm going to start a business-to-business digital health platform doing such and such, because you know what? I've been telling people that for 7 years. I've been telling people that since before I started Virtu. And to this day, there's still not another B2B digital health platform competing with me, because as I've learned painfully, there's a hell of a lot more to it than just this idea, right? And as you rightly said, you don't have to worry about someone stealing your idea. Now, if you've got some little thing that you've got a patent, right, and you don't have a patent for it, yes, that's different. Maybe it's a little piece of technology or something, but a piece of technology is not a business. A piece of technology is a piece of technology. And this is one area where I see so many of my IT friends screw up, right? I got all these friends all over the world that are coders, right? And these are some of the most dangerous people on earth, right? But I mean dangerous to themselves, because you'll get a couple coders in a room together and they'll come up with a cool idea for an app or something, or a new hospital information system. And before you know it, they got the laptops out and they're coding away and they're making this thing. And the thing is, it may be pretty good, but their skill, their competence is in sitting in front of a computer, typing on keys, writing code. They're not business people. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to sell. They don't know about finance. And these guys are going to go start a business and it will fail. Guaranteed it's going to fail, because I think something like 99.9% of my friends who were coders, hardcore coders who started businesses, they failed because they knew how to code, but they didn't know anything else. Right. And so worrying, definitely do not worry about, telling people what you're doing. It's a bigger problem not telling people what you're doing. That's what most of us are guilty of. Okay, this is probably one of the most emotional parts of what I want to talk about, because there's really not a nice soft way for me to say these next things. So I'll just be honest. I try to be honest. Most people, if you talk to most people and say, what kind of company do you want to work for? Right? If you would just go to the average person and say, what kind of company you want to work for? They want to work for a big, secure, prestigious, well-paying organization, right? They want to know that they're going to keep getting their paycheck next month and next year. When their boyfriend or girlfriend says, "Oh yeah, well, Brian works for Google. Brian works for whatever." They want it to be impressive, right? So some company that's known, that's paying well, that's secure. So these are the companies that most people, I believe, and most of the people I talk to, they say, that's what I want to work for. And even if they don't want to work for a big mega company, then maybe they want to work for a smaller company, but they still want it to be prestigious. They still want it to be secure, right? They want to know that they're going to get their paycheck next week and next month, and that their health insurance is paid for. Right. So this is what the kind of organizations that most people want to work for. So saying that, who in the hell wants to go work for a startup? Think about that. This is like the ugly, honest part that we don't ever want to think about, right? But this is important. It's so important. I've lived through this twice. Who wants to work for a startup other than you, the founder? Of course, you want to work for your startup, right? But also be honest with yourself. A lot of you are starting your own companies because you lost your job. You're forced to be entrepreneurs, except you don't want to admit it, right? So it's like, oh, I decided to start my own company. How many of your staff, how many of your employees simply could not get a job at Google or at Etihad or at wherever it is? So what ends up happening in many, not all, but what ends up happening in many startups and early stage companies is they end up being staffed by friends and family of the founder. I'm pausing for a second so you can all soak this in, because if you have a company and you have any employees, why is that employee working for you and not working for some nice big multinational company? Because see, the best and the brightest, right? The high performing rock stars, they can get jobs with those companies. It's the others that can't. So as harsh as this may sound, for most startups, most of ours included, when we're first starting the company, it's highly likely that we're going to have a bunch of suboptimal people on our payroll. That's just the nature of the beast. We're not going to be populated with a bunch of rock stars. Sure, we're going to lie to the world and say that we are. We're going to lie to each other and say that we're the best and the brightest. But if everybody was the best and the brightest, they'd be working for Facebook. Right? They'd be working for Uber or Careem or who knows where else. They're going to be working for this company that no one has ever heard of, that they don't even know if they're going to have health insurance next week or if they're going to get paid in 2 weeks. They're getting paid hardly anything because the company can't afford to pay them. No, the truth is that it is probably a combination of friends, family members that couldn't get jobs elsewhere, and they're working with you. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay as long as they can do the work, right? If they can do the work, that's fine. And I was in this position myself with my first startup, that when I started the company, I had people that they could do the work. So I didn't know this, but then the company started growing. The company started, we went from 4 people to 8 people to 32 people to 65 people, from 1 office to 3 offices to 5 offices. And we had customers and we had revenue. And then once we were there, then we were able to start hiring real people, right? I could start hiring higher caliber, people. And I quickly and painfully became aware of something, that of those people that started the company with me, some of them grew with the company, right? Some of them were learning and I was teaching and we were all learning and they were maturing and they were growing. However, many of them were not. Either they didn't want to, or they weren't capable of it, or whatever. But there were several, and I'm thinking of them right now, because it's painful, because I let them keep working with me because I felt obligated to them. They were there when I started the company, and I can hear the discussions in your mind, right? Where you're saying, oh, Bonnie was here with me when I started the company 2 years ago, and she was working 7 days a week, and she put in so much time, and she made so many sacrifices, and now we're successful and we've hit break even, I always have to proofread Bonnie's emails because she can't write email worth shit, or Bonnie always messes up on the calculations, or she tells the customers the wrong, and you're defending Bonnie and you send Bonnie to Toastmasters to learn how to speak, except she can't learn how to speak and she can't Bonnie's got to go. But you won't fire Bonnie because she's your friend, she's your cousin, she was there in the beginning. This is one of the main causes of startup companies getting sucked into the ground, is the people that you started the company with are probably not the people that you're going to grow the company with. And that's harsh, right? And sometimes you need outsiders to make those decisions for you, whether it's a board of directors, an advisory board, or even another business person, where you go to Lorenzo and you say, hey, Lorenzo, here's the situation with this employee. What do you think I should do? And Lorenzo or myself would probably say, have you tried to coach them? Have you tried to mentor them? Yes, I've been trying for 6 months, but it's not working. It's not working. You need to let them go. And if you don't, it will destroy your company. It will be toxic for the other employees. The performance of your organizations will drag down. So one of the hardest things to do is getting rid of those people that are starting the company with you. Just keep this in mind, that everything from when you're starting the company to when you're growing the company, this applies to multinationals. Most organizations, this is one of their greatest weaknesses. And I don't mean just small companies, I mean mega big companies. Most companies hire too quickly and fire too slowly, right? And you just need to do it the other way around. You need to be much more systematic, much more thoughtful in your hiring process. 1 interview, 2 interviews, that's nothing. If you're hiring someone after 1 or 2 interviews, you're dead. It's a matter of time. If you look at some of the most successful enduring companies, 5 interviews, 7 interviews, 10 interviews with different people in the organization. And yes, that sounds like a lot, because most companies fail. Most companies don't do that. So hire slow, fire fast. And, along with that culture of service failure recovery, it's also that everyone must be continually growing. If you want your business to grow, the people are going to have to grow as well, not just in the number of people you have, but in the competence, in the knowledge, and the skills and ability. And if you have people that think that they already know everything, fire them. Right? None of us know everything, especially in this changing world. We all need to be learning every day, right? Driving, I live all the way out in Ocoyo on the edge of the desert. Every time I'm in the car, I'm listening to educational podcasts, right? Because I'm learning. I just signed up for a Stanford University AI and healthcare thing on Coursera because I need to learn. And if all of your people are not committed to constantly learning, then show them the door, because by the nature of your business, you need to grow, you need to evolve, and you need to adapt, which isn't just your product, it's also all of your people. Lorenzo, this is my closing section. I'd like to briefly talk about your commitment to your business. And this is different for each of us. And some of you may have thought about this a lot. Some of you may have been forced to think about it. Some of you may not have thought about it at all. But no matter where you are in your journey, maybe you haven't started your business yet, maybe you've just started it, maybe you're a couple years into it or many years into it. But not just what does the future look like, because of course we want to think positively and we want to put positivity out there and do that. But also once in a while, I mentioned Jack Welch earlier, because again, his big thing was reality, was really seeing and accepting reality so that you can deal with it. Right. And so aside from our company's going to be great, we're going to dent the universe, change the world, save all the starfish, whatever it is, take a little time to figure out, if it doesn't work, if it all goes south, how much pain am I willing to endure? How much sacrifice am I really willing to make? If you're currently living in a nice, multi-room villa with your family and you got 2 cars and, all those things, and if the business doesn't quite take off quick enough, are you willing to move into an apartment? Are you willing to get 1 car instead of 2? Instead of having the BMW, are you willing to drive the Sunny around because it's not quite as flash as the BMW? Are you willing to no longer go out to dinner, twice a week? Are you really willing to make all those sacrifices? Now, and I'm not saying that you're going to have to make them, but just having a little moment where you sit down and say, we all want it to go this way, but if it doesn't, where am I going to draw the line? Because you don't want to go too far past that line. Because if you go too far past it, it's going to start messing with your family. It's going to start messing with your health. It's going to start messing with your mind. So taking a little bit of time to say, okay, what sacrifices would I be willing to make? Like, for example, and you know what, it would be kind of interesting, Lorenzo, if I'm going to ask 2 questions, and would people please just type in on the chat function whether you would do this or not for your business, okay? Would you sleep in your office for a year? You can just type in yes or no into the chat thing. Would you sleep in your office for a year? Yes or no?
There's a lot of yeses. I would say 90% yes, 10% no.
Now, for those of you that said yes, do you really mean that? Or are you just bullshitting? Are you just saying that because you want to appear to be some superhero? Because quite frankly, I don't believe that 90% of you would sleep in your office for a year. Lorenzo, do you believe that?
Well, people are replying, I mean it, I mean it. I mean, I want to see what's your reply to it. I've seen a lot of successful startups get started in garages and sleeping at home and so on. So are you saying that maybe that's not the way to go? What's the recommendation?
No, I'm just asked. I just want people to assess their level of commitment to their business, and it's different for each of us. No, Lorenzo, I'm not saying it's not the way to go, because that book, Bad Blood, great book. It's mine. They're my pajamas. Second question. Would you be willing to eat only one bowl of ramen noodles every day for that same year?
I think you won't survive. Everybody says,
I survived.
You ate ramen noodles for a year.
I still have the bowl and the spoon.
And you're in the
So question for the participants, would you live off a bowl of ramen noodles for a year to keep your business going?
Somebody writing, I would, yes, yes, no, I would. I think it's a 50-50 on this one.
You can put avocado. You can put avocado in the ramen noodles. It adds a lot.
So are you saying people in general are not willing to make the sacrifice?
I'm asking them just to think about what sacrifices they are willing to make. I don't want anyone to ever have to sleep in their office. I don't want anyone to have to live off of a bowl of ramen noodles, right? And for example, if you're currently living in a nice 3-bedroom villa in the Meadows, right? You've got a nice house, you got a nice car, you go out 3 times a week with your friends to nice restaurants. That is your lifestyle. Now you've started this company, right? And you're burning through the investor money. You're not hitting your sales targets. So the investors say, okay, we're still going to keep funding your company, but you can't keep taking the same salary. We're going to cut your salary in half, which means you can't afford the villa in the Meadows anymore. You're going to have to move into a 2-bedroom apartment in Sharjah. You're renting that BMW. Nope, you're going to rent a Nissan Sunny. You've been going to Ma Petite Maison and Gaucho and other places. Nope, you're going to be going to Ravi's and Samarkand and Zagol. You know, that it's just having the little intellectual exercise with yourself of saying, here's my current standard of life. And, you know, where's the line? Because if you go too far past that line for too long, it can hurt you.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't want you to do that. I don't want me to do that. And I did, and it hurt. It hurt like hell. Right. So knowing what your parameters are, you know, what you're willing to do and not willing to do. And hopefully you'll never have to do any of them. But giving some thought to it, I found to be very, very helpful. There's one last thing that I want to mention because it's really important. So I talked about these books in the beginning. Selection bias, right? These were built on publicly traded companies, multi-million bestsellers, New York Times, blah, 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 blah. As far as I'm concerned, they're worthless, right? Because you can't, you know, selection bias, you can't apply them to business. All these, you know, and it's heresy what I'm saying. Some people, like, they run their lives, the best book they ever read and everything, okay? However, what was really telling for me was these books were about how to be great, how to succeed, yada, yada, yada. 15 years after writing this, one of the authors finally realized it's not about winning, it's about not losing. It took him 15 years to learn the importance of studying why businesses fail. And I would argue that this book is worth 1,000 times more than those other books. And this is a good book about why things fail. This one, The Importance of Adapting. This is probably one of the most useful books I've ever read, but it hardly sold any copies, right? It's not a bestseller anywhere, but it's a really good book. So there's lots of resources out there where you can learn. Otto von Bismarck said it years ago that a fool doesn't learn from their mistakes, but a wise person learns from the mistakes of others, right? In your life, you don't have time to make all the mistakes and learn from them. So, just in closing, one of the things that I would really hope for all of you is just take some time to learn about all the different ways a business can fail, and just don't do that. Just don't fail. Thank you.
That was excellent, Brian. Thank you so much for this webinar. I think there were some great points there. A very different approach to what we've had in the last few weeks. We really thank you for this. I would like to ask you, Brian, maybe we would like to send the presentation to all the attendees. And also maybe if you can give us a summary of these 6 or 7 books that you've been recommending. What is the title, the author? We can include this on a follow-up email that we will send everybody so that everybody can take a look and have these the recommended books that you're suggesting. Another couple of things, we invite everybody to connect to the CZ Connect platform so that we can keep on engaging, sharing knowledge and ideas. And I saw our marketing team has created even a LinkedIn group out of the people that are connected on this webinar. So everybody go to these links, connect there. Brian maybe is going to connect himself there too. He will share the books, the titles. Everybody can engage with one another, and we can continue the conversation online. Brian, what do you think?
That sounds perfect. I'll be happy to network, communicate, share. I'll definitely provide you with these. Lorenzo, I've also given your team, I've already given them 5 bullet points on a great YouTube video from the CEO of Y Combinator, which is the most successful accelerator in the US. They have 2,000 companies that they funded that are worth over $100 billion, something like that. And so their CEO gave an excellent YouTube presentation on what he has learned about business failure from the Y Combinator startups. So I've already given that link to your team, along with the article related to the hotel, the MIT exit interview survey, and some others. I'll be happy. I'll provide the book titles. If anyone wants to reach out to me directly at any time, I'm more than happy to talk with them. Again, I want to thank you for having me as part of this. It's really fantastic, what you've put together. And for the attendees for signing up and being part of it. I hope some of this was useful to you. It's been really a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for our partnership with the Dubai Businesswomen Council. For any women that need a little support, networking, go to the Dubai Businesswomen Council and engage with them. They have a very good platform that they can support you. And from our side at Creative Zone, anybody that needs help in setting up their companies, we help people throughout the entire journey of you setting up, becoming successful. We have these sessions, the webinars. We have a list of another 15 things that we can help you with. Please feel free to connect with me. My email is lorenzo@creativezone.de. Happy to connect with everybody. All the best, Brian. Thank you so much again to our attendees. Thank you for connecting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.